In today's gospel, what we have is we have Jesus going from Galilee into Samaria. A lot of times, what would happen is that pious Jews would not go through Samaria because of the animosity, the hatred between the Jews and the Samaritans that go back to the starting of the Samaritans, which were people people were in the land of the northern kingdom of Israel, 10 of the 12 tribes. Many were sent away and they became the lost tribes, but the ones who stayed, they intermixed with the Assyrians that were brought in and they became the Samaritans. So there's animosity all the way back 700 years between the two groups. And so many would go around by the Jordan. They would go around the area of Samaria, but Jesus goes through Samaria on his way to Jerusalem. And on his way to Jerusalem, he sees the people who are the lepers. Leprosy, again, was not something like today. It's considered Hansen's disease, which now is curable. But back then, it was really a conglomeration of a lot of contagious skin diseases that were highly contagious. And so if the person contracted one of those and they were sent away and they were to live basically on the absolute margins of society, to beg for food, to say to people unclean so that they know to stay away, not allowed to go into the synagogue, not allowed to go into the temple, not allowed to be there with the family members. But if their disease did clear up, if it was a rash that they didn't think would clear up, but it did, they would go to the priest. The priest would then do a ceremonial cleansing of their residence, and then they would be allowed back in society. The thing is that for leprosy was kind of like a physical ailment, but also a spiritual one. So that's why it had the cleansing involved. And so when Jesus sees the lepers, he says to go show yourselves to the priest. Again, the priest would be the ones who would make the determination that yes, everything had cleared up. So one of the things we think about this particular gospel is we think about the idea of gratitude. And one of the things about today is maybe less so than even in the past is that idea of gratitude. People not giving thanks to God for the blessings that they give, kind of more like in Genesis where the first parents, the devil was convincing the Adam and Eve that God was holding out on them, that they needed to grasp, they needed to steal, they needed to do all this stuff because God was somehow holding out on them. I think we see the same today. The other thing that we see is that everybody has a right to a particular thing, that there's, how dare you, deny me this, or how dare you deny me that, even though maybe you're not qualified or don't have the type of education, but yet a lot of times people are like appalled that somehow they've been denied. And so one of the things that we think about is that idea that we need to give thanks to God. We need to allow the Lord to work in our hearts, to sow those seeds of gratitude, to give thanks to God in all circumstances of life. And in doing so, we really begin to go from the morass of either navel gazing and thinking about only myself and about my needs and all the things that I don't have and all the things that I need and I don't have and oh my goodness. We go from that to praising God and to begin to change our life, because really what it does is it brings us outward. It brings us away from ourselves, gratitude. So that's one of the beauties of gratitude. And I think that certainly we could look at this gospel and say that there is that idea of gratitude. Because certainly both all the 10 were cleansed. Jesus tells them, they say, Jesus, have pity on us. Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he sees them, he says, go show yourselves to the priest. they respond with great faith, because they'd be like, wait a minute, Jesus, hold on a second, we're not healed yet. Heal us and then we'll go show ourselves. No, they believed that somehow that God would work something out. So they went and were going to show themselves to the priests. The interesting thing is that one came back, and were the other 9, what about them? Did they not have any gratitude? Were they somehow angry that God had changed their life, that God had allowed them not to have the leprosy? Were they somehow, how dare you do this to me? I was really happy about begging for food, about being on the outskirts of the town. I was really happy about yelling out, unclean, unclean. I was really happy about being away from all my family and friends. How dare you do this to me? No, I think that they had the gratitude, but I think the one thing that they were looking for was that complete restoration. So they wanted to go and show themselves to the priests. And really, in a way, who can blame them for that? Who can blame them for wanting to be restored fully into the community? But the important part was what the Samaritan did. It certainly was important for them to be integrated back into the community, and that was certainly an important thing. But the one thing that was really important was to show gratitude for the fact that they were cured. This wasn't just by happenstance. It wasn't some small little rash that was going to disappear in a few days. No, these people had been on the outskirts of society for a long while. And so what was really important was not to go back into the community to be re-established within the community, but to give thanks for Jesus for curing them. And that's what the Samaritan did. So I think it is a matter of, certainly of gratitude, but I think it's also a matter of priority. And I think that what we see with Luke is that those who were last were the first, because they were the ones who showed the proper, not only the gratitude, but also what was the most important thing. The important thing was to give thanks, and that was the Samaritan. So the Samaritan, in coming back to the Lord, he returns, he falls at the feet of Jesus and thanks him. He said, were the 10 cleansed? Were they not? Were the other 9? As known, but this foreigner give thanks to God. So he says, stand up, go, your faith has saved you. So that's the other important thing, is that also is that idea of gratitude, the idea of what is truly the important thing. And then also that the last will be first, but also that Jesus is here not only to bring healing, but also to bring salvation. And so those who were healed, many were healed, but how many were saved? Because they came to that idea of a salvation, understanding of who Jesus was. Maybe not fully, but they had an understanding. And so in having that gratitude, in having that understanding, they not only achieved their physical healing, but also salvation itself. Thanks, God bless.